Hi, Martin.
Oh,
I'm just merging the pull requests for the agenda.
yeah, let's see who shows up.
Karen is there. Oh, she did a pull request. Hi, Derek.
Hey,
Hi.
how's the heat wave in Europe? Almost done or still brutal?
It's not as bad. No, it cooled down a little bit at least here.
Really?
Yeah.
And we have
Not
still 30 something degrees.
no. We've had a few days of like cooling down and like thunderstorms, so it might get hotter again, but
That sounds good.
yeah.
But you're more north. We are like Zurich's almost Italy. So
Yeah. Still pretty hot out there.
Yeah, it's like
okay.
I was surprised when I actually moved to Chicago is that it's actually at latitude of Rome.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so we're actually pretty far down south by that,
But the winters are pretty harsh as well, right?
not
No?
sure. Now we get snow maybe in January, I guess. Now, for
In
it stays
Chicago,
for like
but
a week or two.
you have the lakes, right? They're cooling a lot there.
Yeah, well, there's a lake effect, right? So there's like there's generally have like one or two snowstorms, but no, the for the most part, when it snows, it's gone within a week or a couple days, so it's not that bad.
Yeah. One area I still have on my list for the US, Chicago, Lake Michigan.
Yeah, it's called Windy City, but it's not really that windy.
Yeah.
It's not. It's as windy as any other high-rise area in other cities like New York or whatever. So supposedly it's from the political swings in the 19th centuries that was calling the Windy City. But
Ah.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. And also open. I think we are complete. Pascal is not joining today because he's doing military service. So in
Oh,
so the Swiss people, they do military service not in one block, but over years. You have to go like 2 or 3 weeks every year. So
so how long is he?
yeah, like he started, and maybe the next 2 weeks he is. So this week and the next week he is doing his playing war. I think the prime enemy is always the Germans.
That's how you, yeah, that's the role
Yeah.
play you.
Yes. So
Yeah. I feel they should use some kind of neutral enemy, just or maybe even like make it fun, make it orcs or something, like an orc army.
yes. Yeah, I find it funny that it's so long gone, the World War, but it's still like they're preparing against the Germans.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did a couple more pull requests, and Kamil also did a pull request that is summarizing the Apollo error codes and errors. We can have a look at that. Let's quickly do a round of introduction. So welcome, everyone. Let me remind you that by being here, we all agree to the GraphQL Spec Membership Agreement and to the GraphQL Foundation Code of Conduct. I'm Michael Stipe. I'm the host today, and let's do an introduction in the order of the agenda.
Yeah, I'm Martin. I'm with Apollo.
Camille from the guild.
Eric from Apollo.
Awesome. So Pascal actually put us an agenda item in here, which is as the preprocessor. But since he's not here, we can also have a look at the rules that we have so far. I think I have polished one of the rules, which is this one here. I already went over a couple of times. This is the semantic equivalence. The one thing missing here is still the note that you can opt, but this is a more general note, right? That any rule that might interfere with extensions that you provide, for instance, the interface object that Apollo has, can also be dropped or modified, right?
Yeah.
We in general need one of those clarifiers in the validation rules, because there could be other features where people then say, okay, in this case, it makes no sense. But basically what the rule we already, I think, looked at is says is that you always, like, you can merge types of the same kind. Like here, two object types, they will merge, but you cannot merge an object type with a scalar. But then again, scalars would merge. This has also now the correct algorithm. I reviewed it with Benji, who gave me some input also on how we should best write these algorithms to match the GraphQL spec style. Like he outlined a bit more the terms that we use, what a set is, for instance, in the GraphQL specification, what a map and what a list. Like we have certain meanings for these in the algorithms. Okay, this is one of the things. I think we already looked at it, but this one is basically ready to go if nobody has objections. So you can, I can post it in the chat. You can have a look afterwards on it, and then either raise an objection over the text or whatever. Let me find the
One question about the validation rules. So do we plan to have like example error messages, or it's like out of scope?
So I was thinking, no.
You can join.
So we were thinking about this, and the idea was to have error codes, but not the messages.
Okay.
I don't know if we want to go that far with messages, but there would be a more editorial work.
So I'm asking because, like, for some rules, it might be actually useful. So for example, if you provide that like type is not mergeable, like you need to define which type, right?
Yeah.
Where. So there needs to be like some sense of location, and like the pointers to the types, right? So for example, in a rule that we are going to like cover, which is like the satisfiability in federation, then the thing there is that like it gives you the query path that is not satisfiable or like resolvable, or however we want to call it. But basically it gives you the idea of like what is not resolvable and why, right? So, and the error code will just say like, there's like the error code is just the error code, right? We need to like explain it. So I'm not suggesting to like put it in the spec, but like, I don't know, we need to cover, I think, that as well.
But are you talking about the error message or like additional structured data?
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't have to be the error message, but like just the error code, it means nothing, right? It has to we have to like define something else that could be our error message, or like a structure of the of things that you can use in the error message or something like that.
Should we have that as an appendix maybe, where we explain this is the error code, this is the error structure? Or do you
Yeah,
guys...
and I'm assuming there will be some like standard ingredients of error messages, sort of like standard ways of encoding query paths or like referring to locations in particular subgraphs.
Yeah.
I think Derek might know more about sort of the current output, like how structured that is.
Well, the messages depends on the error code. So there's different.
But do we have additional data in there, like structured data? Like is the query path part of the query, part of the message, or do we have like a separate path?
Well, it tells you like the type names and where they're actually mismatching between the subgraphs, but there's nothing specifically like structured. Those are just
to my knowledge, it's just error messages and
okay, yeah.
the location, but like the document node location, like the
Yeah, we probably don't want to make it a requirement, but I mean, well, maybe some structured data could be a requirement, but it would be good as an appendix, as a like if you provide this information, please use this standard format.
Yes, we can do it twofold. Either we fully specify it, but this could also lead to inflexibility in the implementation, or we have an appendix where we say this is our proposed error structure for this error, and we strongly recommend you do it like that. But then there's still an exit hatch where they say, okay, but I want to do it this other way. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, I can like I write a to-do for this, so we can pick this up.
Yeah, we could even like do it at the very end. It does not matter. Like, I mean,
yeah, like an appendix. We already have an appendix for the selection map syntax. This is also an appendix. I mean, it's the same binding, but it lets us like the readability of the spec is like nice. You basically have a fluent way through the spec, but then if you want to dig deeper into certain things, you can have a look up in the appendix, which then outlines certain aspects. Okay. And there's a second thing that happened this week, and that is that Carmen actually worked on the federation code. So he collected basically all the errors that are in Apollo Federation at the moment. And from this, we should be able also to draw some, maybe verify our validation rules that we have at the moment, or draft some from them if we... Yeah, you can take it away.
So those are really the rules that may or may not be relevant to us. Like there's a long list of error codes in Federation, and I removed those that were like not relevant by the first side, right? Like interface object, and everything else that is like out of the scope of the spec. And here are those that were like relevant to us, but maybe some of them are really not, if we like really think about it. So not sure. Just wanted to like give it as a example, like how Apollo is doing that, and
yeah,
then
this
and
why,
great. And then I know like a lot of like the context of each, like not the context, like but like works, and like like instead of like just the error message, I can explain all of those more like better basically. And yeah, I have a test case for each, so then it's also might be helpful.
Yeah, very helpful.
Okay. Yeah, it's
Is there anything that was sort of surprising to you that?
Some. There is one rule that I have no idea if there's any logic, or like there is the logic, but I cannot really like tell. It's
which
the
one?
extension base or something like that. There's like no extension, or like base with no extension, something like that. It's like the last one in the super graph level, I believe.
It sounds like
Extension
a
with no
leftover
base.
from Fed 1, but
Extension with
Yeah,
no
and this
base.
one is like, it's sometimes when you have extend, it works, sometimes not. It's like I cannot really grasp it. I have no idea. It's this one or like external missing on base, I don't know, but either this one or the next one is I'm not fully like understand it, to be honest. I get the idea, but like it doesn't always work this way, so I'm not sure. So, you know.
I know this must be Federation 1, right? Because
Yeah,
like
looks like
Yeah,
Federation.
it could be. Yeah, it might be. Yeah.
and it makes sense if you look in Federation 1, you had the proper there must be a proper type to extend upon, right?
Yeah.
That's basically what it says. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's if we still
No.
like special case extend type, or if we just treat it as a sort of any type definition. That's what I would expect, but
So external missing on a base, that's definitely Fed 1. Extension of no base, this is actually, to me, that would sound like this is like the actual GraphQL validation. So if you just want to do extend type and you don't have a type, that should be just an error from the GraphQL implementation, right?
well, but we
extends.
pre-processed it before, like with Fed 1, you were allowed to sort of have an extend type in one subgraph and
Yeah.
a normal type definition in another one. And I'm not sure if with the conversion to Fed 2, we actually treat like a type extension as a type definition. I don't know if we still differentiate between the two at the
No,
like
we don't.
during merging.
Yeah,
So like the
in
one weird thing there is like it's basically a Federation v1 rule, to be honest, because it's really like about extends for backwards compatibility and extend as a type definition. That makes no sense. So for us, this makes no sense for the composite schema working group. It's just that like you asked if like one of those were like weird to me. So this one, because I commented on the on Zoom that one actually passes and the other one not, and for me it's like not logical, but that's like out of the scope of the meeting, so let's not
but it does mean we probably need to specify sort of how we handle extension definitions, how we plan to handle those, like
we like in my mind, but we can also specify it out. Like this is a pre-processing thing that you would need to implement. Like in the end, in the composition process, we at the moment specify there's no extent, right? It's all type definitions.
Yeah.
We could, but probably also as an appendix, say if you want to use type extensions, which we, for instance, with Fusion allow. You don't have to do it, but we allow you to use type extension to kind of bring annotations to schemas that you might not have control over. In these cases, we could outline this is the way we propose to do the pre-processing.
And actually, like last week, we talked about directives on type extensions as a way of like separating different categories of
exactly.
So that would also be a use case for this. So we probably do want to specify like extension handling in a little more detail, but at least once you get to merging, like that should already be taken care of, right? So we're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would also like anything with extensions should be done before we start the actual merge.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can let me note that down, then we can add that actually to the structure we have there, so we outline it.
Yeah, the external missing on base is pretty much about like, having external in all the subgraphs, and there is no definition for a field. Like definition, by definition, I mean, non-external, which
Yeah.
is like the default. So yeah.
And
Okay.
I guess that's still a valid error message, right? With the spec we're currently.
With the current, the GraphQL specification doesn't say how
No,
extensions.
but for us with this spec, you could still end up in a situation where a field is external in all subgraphs, right?
Yes, if we specify the pre-processing as part of the composition, then it could even be that you have an extent of a scalar, any type.
Oh no, but
extended.
I'm talking about external here, right? Not extend.
External.
Yeah,
Sorry.
external. It's the first base in your. Okay.
This one?
So it's external with external missing on base, basically.
Yeah.
It should be in the supergraph, somewhere at the end. Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
One way side. Yeah.
External missing on base.
Yeah, it's just that, like the external says I cannot resolve that, right? You need to pass it to me broadly. So then if every field is marked as external, then like nobody really defines or like resolve that field, right? So that's the rule is just about that, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, also like the external, like in case of a polar federation, is really just for the provides and like requires as well. So it's just saying like, just I get by design is to have a field that you like have this contract of the field is there. I know it. I know the output type of it. I know its existence. Then I can also have like type safety out of the subgraph without looking at the supergraph. This kind of stuff. And yeah, and then you mark it as I require that, right?
Yeah, this one is actually yeah, you need that because like if it's everywhere external, right? There's there's no data.
Yep.
So this is actually an interesting conversation because we were just chatting about it in the last couple of days. Well, fixing one of the issues of the requires, and the question that came out of it was kind of like an interesting one because I was looking at um, the field selection syntax PR, and that was actually when we were talking about those fields that we're actually passing there, like the arguments for those at require. We were not, we did not talk about the external and how they actually relate to that, because well, that is actually has an interesting stuff. Because well, for the requires right now, well, yeah, we don't have a strong typing there because it's entity mapping, right? It's just representation, right? How we get handle those input types, that's entities, that's not there. But the interesting part is about what are the subgraphs expectations for the supergraph schema elements that are accessed by the query, right? Because that is an interesting part. Because well, the strong typing and the syntax or how to declare that's handled, right? With the at require, you have it on arguments, you already have the types, right? It's fixed, but the expectation.
Well, you don't necessarily have all the types. If you traverse into a type that you yourself don't have to find, or like a field that you don't have to find, you would still want it in your subgraph marked external, but you want it in your subgraph so you can validate the require in isolation.
Yeah, so that was actually the thing that actually tripped me, because that was actually my understanding was flawed, is that with the requires, that is the selection against the supergraph, which doesn't have to be valid locally. Which means that there is actually a flaw in GraphQL spec itself that you can define external field that returns you an interface, because you don't need an implementation of an interface. If it's a nullable field or if it's an array of those, you can just return an interface that it's external, so I shouldn't be able to access it locally, right? But on the requires, I can actually select an implementation of that implementation. And since if I can resolve it in my entities, it still works. So there's kind of like a very odd use case there. But technically it's valid in a way that, you know, you can hack it through. And the question around here is that when we're doing those like mappings, and how do we handle those externality, and what are those fields? Well, my understanding is that with the at require, we do want to have a strong guarantees that what you require actually maps directly to a structure on the given type. Right? So we want to leave that ambiguity there. So it's actually, from that perspective, that should be locally satisfiable, right? So you can actually always map it to the correct.
But I mean, but that was also, to be fair, that was also the intention behind requires. And like at external is not part of the GraphQL spec, right? No. It's something we came up with specifically for that purpose. So if there's like a missing case, like we allow you to select types that you don't have defined locally. I mean, I would say that's a flaw in our current validation rules, or at least it's like looser than it could be.
Yes.
So we probably want to fix that for this spec with at require.
Yeah, that definitely. And then the question around those is like kind of like, how do we actually, because at external means that those should not be locally resolvable. You want to provide them from somewhere else, right? And the question around this is like, okay, so if I'm working on a super graph, that's already taken care of, right? But if I have my own, you know, subgraph server, if someone hits it, well, there's nothing stopping you for preventing to access those, right? So kind of like, do we need to codify those that behavior? What should be happening over there? That's kind of like.
But yeah, I think originally the idea was that we would actually filter out the at external fields from the local subgraph schema, that it would only be used for like validation and composition, but it wouldn't be part of the local schema.
Well, but how do then means that every subgraph that actually marks that it actually should be doing that, right? Means that it's a subgraph implementation detail that they actually.
But I mean, the external data is passed in through arguments here, right?
Yeah.
And this way, it's still valid. Like it's for the supergraph to understand. But if you were to just use it locally, the schema, you would have to satisfy the arguments, and then the fields would be there.
Yeah, like the satisfiability rule will actually have to consider like all the query paths. So, you know, like, yeah, it has to always go from the, like, through the arguments, right?
Yeah.
So the external, like, I'm not sure if I see a reason to actually remove the fields that are external.
Well, I think the issue is that you would in theory be able to like query those external fields if you hit the subgraph directly. Like if it's part of the subgraph schema, and you execute a query against that subgraph directly.
Oh, by directly you mean like directly?
Yeah,
not
you
like,
use it.
Yeah.
Just...
Okay. Yeah. Then That's so far.
But
sure.
like this is a problem with Apollo Federation, not with the composite schema spec, right? Because Apollo Federation has the entities field.
No, but the issue is not the entities field. The issue is anything that's marked external should not be.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you could have like query users, and then boom, it's there, right?
Yeah, it's because like it's there in a certain path. Because like if you have the combination with provides, like you have two fields exposed on the subgraph, then through one of them you could get certain fields, and through the other one not, right?
Yeah, like the only thing that makes sure that this is resolvable is the query planner, right? Or like any logic at the gateway. Yep. Otherwise, you can do mistakes.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just thinking with requires. With requires, you don't have the problem because like you would provide actually the data through the arguments, and then they would be there.
No, but even with require, let's say that you require a particular field on user, but like by definition, that's not a field you yourself are able to serve, right? But if it's part of your local schema, if you don't filter out that external field, someone could just execute a query against your subgraph server and ask for that field. because it's part of your schema.
Yeah. And it's only there because for the composition.
Yeah.
Essentially.
It's basically a non-resolvable field. Yeah. So yeah, but maybe something worth thinking about whether we want to filter those out. But I think you're right. Provide actually complicates the matter, because in that case, some queries against those fields will be valid.
Yes.
And maybe the answer is that we know about this and we just guarantee that this is the gateway responsibility to call that, and you don't expose. But if they're using it as part of the composite schemas and as a separate schema that someone can hit, then there could be potential problem there, right?
Yeah, I think
but maybe the answer is that we just say, yeah, it has to go through the query planning.
Yeah, if you're using external, if you use certain features, then the schema makes no sense out of the scope anymore.
Yeah. And
I feel like
in the case where the subgraph is also independently being used, it would probably be an overlay, right? So you would have a separate schema effectively for the gateway facing and the public facing API.
Yeah, could be, but you could also say I don't care, because I know it's just used within in these boundaries and I don't expose it anyway publicly.
Yeah, I feel like the problem
Go ahead, Kevin.
would be with the if you have a field and you remove it from the schema, some implementations won't be aware of that field, even if you use async GraphQL or whatever. The implementation of a subgraph will have to take care and will have to resolve it. And if it's not in the schema, then it's this mystery field, that is out of the, how do you call it, out of the the regular algorithm for GraphQL, the real GraphQL, GraphQL JS, GraphQL implementation spec compliant, right? So it would have to either have two schemas and resolve one of these conditionally, or has some extra logic within the implementation, right? Which is makes it a bit more annoying, I would say. So it's a trade-off. I don't know. I'm honestly think we should keep those external fields in the schema, and then it's just easier for everyone. If somebody wants to,
that's what we currently do.
Yeah.
We haven't touched on the rules around external yet, but yeah, we.
So maybe it would be worth calling out somewhere in the spec that basically the expectation is that the schema makes sense in the federated gateway environment, right? When you're using the query planning and all that stuff. As for if you're using it as a standalone server, you may need to transform it or put some filtering on it to exclude certain elements which don't make any sense in a standalone environment.
I mean, there are certain features you could use and they will not do anything. But the moment you use kind of traffic steering features like provides and external, then you build something specifically for this distributed context, right?
Yeah. Anything else that surprised you looking at these rules?
Can't tell just right now. There were some that were a bit confusing. Maybe one, I don't remember. But just the more I dove deep into the federation, then it's just made more and more sense. Especially if you look at think about the federation from query planning perspective, it just makes more sense than just looking at the thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and the examples here are also useful. That really helps you get a better sense.
I have how do you call a code or SDLs for each. So then I can even extend it to more. But I guess initially I would I imagine we at some point we'll go through all of these, or I will categorize it so we make it easier for everyone, and then we will see, because those are not about like merging in some cases. It's about the actual spec, like you reference inaccessible, or like you required an inaccessible, or like, there's like the enum intersection, or like, input object types and so on. Like enum intersection, for example, is tricky because it depends if you are using referencing the enums as like inputs or like outputs. And it's like a lot of
enum
stuff.
intersection is something we have that we have to tackle, right? Pascal is working on that. But do you have it in there?
There is, yeah. There is like a empty merged enum type, but the whole logic for like input objects, there is, I think, the enum value mismatch. Like, it's like in the output and it's this one, yeah.
Because Steven from Netflix, he's reading through the pull request that very often, and he commented also specifically on this thing because at the moment we specified that they have to be the same, but we anyway discussed it last week that they should follow the way Apollo Federation did it, with depending on if it's an input or output, be intersecting or union,
So
right?
with the enum stuff, is actually also an interesting thing, because I think it's actually solved by the lookups. Because if you use the enum there as part of the key, it is actually handled as an input type, right? For the federation, when you're using the entities, right, you have to account that it's actually could be part of the key there as well. So that's kind of like, that's an input type there, right?
So you mean it's sort of like an implicit input type, like something we
Yes.
wouldn't be able to detect?
Yes. Because with the lookups, it's explicit, right? You pass it as an argument, right? So
yeah. But it's still like enums. You could have them just on output types, right? Or just on input types.
yeah.
And then... Yeah. Like I will go through this also, like over the next week, and see what we already covered and where we need more rules. At the moment, like we have, I think, 17 or 16 already in some form or shape. They are like, except for one, they are not mergeable yet. Like the algorithms are sometimes too complex. and it needs to have a very clear, it needs to be very simple to read these guys. Yeah, so we can use this as a basis to validate which ones are good, and also to see which ones are missing. I think there's also a website from Apollo I saw where they also list
It's in the docs, yeah. But I'm not sure it has like example error messages, the docs.
But it has like a explanation, like a very brief explanation of what the rule is about.
I think so. Good. Yeah.
But this would be also good, because like when you look at the validation rules, how we structure them, right? It's always in the thing like explanatory text, algorithm, and examples, right? This basically the three parts plus error code. Yeah. We can also grab a lot of the error codes, like Apollo has already tons of these, and it makes no sense to invent new ones. Otherwise, we have to have mapping.
Yeah.
So we can take that over. We just the missing part always is the algorithm, but yeah, takes a bit of time to get through all of these. Okay, that's a bit it for what we have done last week. Let me just check. That's Monday. This one, as I said, is I think ready. So give it review.
One thing about like the type equivalence, not at the definition level, but like the reference level. So if you have like an object field that references a union, let's say, in Federation, Apollo Federation, in some other subgraphs, it could be the same field of the same, object that reference the like a union member. So you could have like a, users in one graph, but in some other could be, or like products, and in some other could be like a, I don't know, I am out of examples, so animals, right? And the other one could be like dog, right? And that's like, and that's fine. And the same applies for like interfaces. So you can reference an interface, but some subgraph could like return, like their fields could return, like the same fields could return the implementations of those interfaces. And it's also okay. So
Yeah.
those are like the things that we,
it's basically a
yeah,
subtype.
like, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the correct term. And it's also not obvious, like I discovered that at some point only.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is, by the way, the enum rule. There was already the comment. This is Steve. So the Netflix people are following.
Yeah, about the enums being like strictly equal. Like there's like a ideal subgraph and there's like the evolution of a subgraph, right? And then if you have like all those equal, then then you have like 190 subgraphs and like 50 enums, then you have to like make it equal in all of them in order to get the composition correct, right?
Yeah.
So it's pain in the ass a bit.
Yeah, no. We're gonna rewrite this. We just copied it over, but now we're gonna rewrite this, and I think Pascal already said that we're gonna relax it.
Oh, there's one thing I wanted to discuss. I discussed it briefly with Martin. It's we had a use case where when somebody is like introducing a federation in their architecture, they have like a type called, let's say, user, right? And then it has like 10 fields or something. So the core rule of federation is like every single query path has to be like executable, like it has to resolve the data, right? And in some cases, if you want to introduce a new field, this field may or may not be like shareable. And if it's not, it has to come from one subgraph, right? So you need to like jump from one subgraph to another, doing like an entity call or however we call it, like lookup, basically, in order to resolve it, right? But then it has to be an entity, right? If it's not an entity, you cannot do the jump. You can do the jump if the parent of whatever is an entity, right? And so on and so on. So I was thinking like this rule of having everything like satisfiable is very strict, and it's fine. It should be always. It's just that I was thinking about like that maybe at some point it could be out of the spec currently at this level, but maybe at some point we could discuss like not an escape patch, but like a like not migration, but like a, I don't know, like a way that people like start from scratch. They have their own GraphQL APIs and they want to like turn this giant monolith into subgraphs and whatever, and
But
if we can do,
what's the specific like what's breaking in this case? Because I would expect if you have an existing subgraph and like you put federation in front of it, like all the types in that subgraph should still be fully satisfiable.
So the context there is that people, like the team were using the schema stitching or some other form of like merging the, like for example, Hazura has also a similar thing when you can just join subgraphs or like GraphQL APIs pretty much, and then it works, right? But all of them are lacking. Like for example, the issue with schema stitching was that like there is no satisfiability rule because you don't know the context of the subgraphs, right?
Yeah.
I believe in Hazura it's kind of similar, but I'm not sure, so I cannot really tell. I'm just like, because they just stitch inputs, but then you have the context, right? And yeah, so that's the context. So they have something that is working, but now they introduce a user type that is shared, but then it has a field only in one subgraph, so you need to resolve it from that graph, but you cannot like really call it directly or indirectly, right? So that's the issue. And I'm not saying this is the big issue, but I'm saying like maybe there are more cases like that And
but is the issue that they can't make it an entity?
No, they could, but they don't
but
have like it cannot be an entity, right? Because there is no
no, they don't.
it's just like it's like an arbitrary data. So like I don't know, a
But
comment, you know.
In Hasura, like I just watched a presentation in Berlin of it. It's like more you have types, and then you can insert like relations basically between types. And then you can jump from one to the other graph. Basically, you introduce a field to this graph and say this is the relation to get this, and you get it by this information. So it looks more like real schema stitching.
Yeah, it's like a really the schema stitching problem. That was the core of it. And then it's like, you know, if you want to adopt federation, then it needs to like, you know, make everything like, you know, satisfiable. And that's fine. It's just that like, so I was thinking like, yeah, bring this example, not just to solve it here, but like, you know, think also about like people moving, for example, from the Apollo Federation or like other approaches to the spec itself, right? So maybe there are things that we could do, you know.
But it would be good to see a complete example, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
With the broken schema.
Yeah, I can prepare something that would be actually promised to do it for you, but I forgot.
Yeah. But I think from Apollo Federation to this spec should be a subgraph by subgraph migration, right? Like
I don't know. Yeah.
In general, we have the same composability rules, so it should just work. But like you have to take one subgraph, upgrade it full to the new spec, and then if the gateway can speak both specifications, it should just work.
Yeah, that's something I haven't like really thought yet about.
Stitching is a different thing, right? Because stitching you can do a lot of things like data massaging even in your resolvers or whatever.
Yeah,
but
I would say like a lot of invalid things, but
yeah. I'm not judging, but like composite schema spec, Apollo should be like it's the same composability rules. Apollo has a bit more functionality. So as long as you stay in the functionality of what the composite schema spec offers as well, it should be we're swapping out this subgraph with a new spec and it's migrated, and then you would same composability rules.
Yeah, if it's possible, yeah.
Yeah, that's the idea I have in my head at least.
Yeah, I think that's true, and like unless we like introduce radically different rules, I think the composition should still work even if it's a mix of like existing Apollo Federation subgraphs and subgraphs that use the new spec. Like the main difference is like the introduction of lookup and require. And those are like per subgraph concerns. Like the query planner needs to be aware of which subgraph like has those features and which subgraph doesn't. But it should be able to mix different subgraphs.
Yeah, because like if you rewrite the request to go against an entities field or against a lookup in the end, it's the same thing.
Well, it would be it complicates things because if you try to do both, actually on the single fetch you would hit just one thing, I guess, but technically you could have both entities and lookup at the same graph. So I'm just because the stuff that we talked about a long time ago, right? Was the batching mechanism, right? And how you would do those require fields with the batching, right? And how do you the variable batching, right? But that's not part of the spec, so you probably need to.
I think we're still assuming that variable batching will be in place.
Yes.
Well, but
otherwise
it will be. I have a talk about it at GraphQL.
Nice.
So,
because assumption is nice, but that being said, right? So there is an HTTP spec, right, for GraphQL that says from next year every server out there should be using the new the accept headers, right, and stuff like that. I don't think a lot of servers actually do. Maybe I'm wrong,
Yes.
maybe they do, but it's
So we like these are very different concerns. I would just say if a subgraph uses a composite schema spec, it has these capabilities. It has the capability of variable batching, right?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't do a mixed approach where you have both on the same subgraph, because then you get into a lot of complications.
Would be weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, if a subgraph has that, it should be easy to integrate into an infrastructure that has Apollo Federation support.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking more of a situation that you were describing, like a bring your own graph, right? That the the extra extensions that you're doing in Fusion, right? I'd say this is my lookup now, right? But that graph may not do variable batching because it doesn't know about it. But we know this is a lookup, right? It's kind of like
Yes.
how that would work, right?
Yeah, but like you can also use request batching. So the way we will describe it for this spec is that variable batching is ideal. But if a server has request batching, and I see that a lot, we can also reuse this. It's a bit more overhead.
But if they don't, that's also, so it's kind of like multiple things, right? Because they may not do a request batching, they may not do any sort of batching, right? So then,
well, then you get a degraded experience, and
Yeah,
in this case, that's probably depending on how you use that subgraph, it might be
might be good enough. Yes.
blocking, like the performance might be unacceptable, or it might just work because it's only a single piece of data with like a few entities.
Yeah. And it's always like, let's see how, are you guys already implementing the new GraphQL over HTTP spec in Apollo? In the
For
Apollo
most part, yeah, like a lot of stuff is there.
Yes.
But yeah.
I think the clients are, yeah.
That's already a big chunk of the community. Yeah, we also support it. I know that the GraphQL Java guys also have it in place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, the Java, I mean, like the Spring, right? The Spring.
Yeah.
And have you gotten any feedback from like variable batching yet?
Variable
Like, has
batching.
anyone, has anyone
no.
taken a look yet outside of this group?
Yeah, Benji, but it's like still a very locus thing that's part of us. So I, at the GraphQL Conf, I will take a look at like all sorts of batching algorithms to a bit also start discussion on that. And until then, I have to have the document in place so people can go after the talk and look these things up.
Yeah.
But
and hopefully that'll generate some excitement.
Yeah, also I don't see variable batching just useful for us. That's why it's I could see a lot of solution like batch inserting certain things and stuff like that. And also like like all sorts of things. Like for the talk, I think look at all kinds of use cases that might not even be valid, but like to a bit start an idea process of people.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Yeah. Anyway, I don't think that I don't have so much concern for batching because like request batching is in most GraphQL servers. Do you know actually one that doesn't allow request batching?
I haven't tried them all, so I have no idea. It's actually I don't know if a Spring actually does the batching. I don't know if they do.
I'll ask Andy. He will know. Would be interesting to see if they implement batching. Like a lot of Apollo front-end customers used to ask for batching to kind of have a better bandwidth utilization that you don't have too many requests. because I think the link provider allows for batching, basically batching together the requests on the front end.
Yeah.
So there are requests for batching from the client to the gateway, from the gateway to the subgraphs. That was actually not that common.
Yeah, but if it's there for clients, from client to server, then the graphical server will support some kind of batching.
Yeah, I mean, they're independent.
Yeah.
You can support one without the other.
Yeah.
Or use one without the other.
Yeah, we're gonna see. We are also at the end.
Yeah.
It's good discussions. I will try to make more rules available, and I will look through the document Carmen provided.
Hey,
And then,
before we drop off, Michael, I was trying to look up the directive PR or issue, and I don't see maybe
which directive PR?
Overall about like all the directives.
Are you in the spec repo or the
Yeah, and I'm spec repo.
the working group
Yeah.
repo? Okay.
In the spec repo, it should be then. I mean, give you the
Because I
numbers.
see the field selection RFC, but
Just give me a second. It is. No, that's field selection.
because I remember that you had a PR open there. That was
Yeah, no.
I don't see that anymore.
This is the source schema chapter. It's called. We renamed it. That's why you don't find it. It's 30, the number 30.
Okay, cool.
Because originally I just worked on the lookup in there, and then we basically put all the directives in there.
Okay,
There's still 2 missing. I have to put in there. I think the key directive is missing. I think. Is that just the key? No, key directive. Oh, it's key directive there. Yeah, I have to go through it again, and
I think there was a separate one for the lookup, so maybe that had to be merged or something like that.
yeah, no, yeah. I consolidated, and the key directive is in there, but it's missing the arguments. I have to write some text for that still. Yeah, there's also external in there. Key. Yeah, they should be all in there. If there's something missing, just comment if you go through it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
All right, guys.
Well, see you next
next
week.
Yep.
Right.